again, an eye-tracking study. The darker color, so the closer you get to red, is where there's more attention on the region of interest. So what you'll notice here is there's various attention. So what's really curious to me about this picture is my advisor, Phil Zimbardo, always taught me to be my own first subject, always. So I always run myself as my first subject. And then I always end up being an outlier, and so I'm completely not instructive for other people. So when I looked at this study, the thing that I fixated on was the gun. And you'll know, like, nobody's paying attention to the gun. It's really sort of interesting. But you'll see differential attention. So what the conservatives are paying attention to are the emblems of authority. The patches about I'm a cop, right? Like I'm the law and order. Whereas what liberals are paying attention to is the person getting the beat down. And to a certain degree, liberals are also paying attention, I didn't circle it, but to the cane. Like this is a disabled person, right? Not a single conservative paid any attention at all to the cane. So there's real differences in what people are paying attention to. It's not, again, just an issue of interpretation. It's an issue of perception. Why is this important? This is important because it can predict important political choices that people make about policy issues. So in the image that I just showed you, which is this same image, you can actually look at how liberals and conservatives respond differently. And then the other thing we manipulated was the story we told. There was a 30-second narrative. So in some of the narratives, we called it a beatdown, and in some of the other narratives, we called it an arrest. And you'll notice that conservatives don't change at all how they look at the image based on the narration, but liberals completely change the way that they think about it when you call it a beatdown versus an arrest. Why is this important? Because different people respond to different stimuli differently. So in other words, some people are much more visual, and some people are much more auditory. Here you see, in this particular instance, that the reactivity on that is really, the auditory reactivity is liberal. In this, which is a different image of a woman looking at a coffin, where we said that he died in combat versus he was a looter, you'll see that the difference in perception changes as a function of somebody being conservative. Again, these are things that you can run not just with liberals and conservatives, but with other categorizations as well. Like when we run these with men versus women, they're always really funny because the men never pay attention to the narration. It's all about the image. But in these, it's reactive based on whether or not people are liberal or conservative in how they look at the image. Similarly, in the sex differences one, we had an image. You saw the one with Madonna and Britney Spears. You can see the amount of time they spend looking at the necklace. In the other one, it's a picture of a soldier holding an injured child. And you can look at differences here. I just wanted to show you how you can divide it up by sex differences, that there's differences in men and women looking at the child's face versus the child's body. So these aren't just ideological things. You can also look at sex differences as well, although we've been primarily interested in the ideological differences. Again, these help you predict policy preferences. So we have people look at certain images and then find out, ask people, did we make a mistake sending troops into Iraq? Or do you think the US, this was done a little while ago, do you think the US can or will win the war in Iraq? And you can predict people's response to that policy question based on how much time they spend looking at particular parts of the image. So if they're spending a lot of attention looking at the flag, you can see that that predicts their answer to whether or not they think that the US made a mistake in entering the war in Iraq, and so on. And we've done numerous ones of these, about 40 of them, and they end up being pretty consistent. So there are particular categories of things that people care about. And you can look at this, again, by liberal or conservative. Here I'm just listing some of the preferences of people that are particularly concerned with protection, which on average tend to be people on the right of the political spectrum. None of these constellations should surprise people who, for example, have been watching the Republican National Convention. So what does this have to do with genes? There was a report a while ago, liberals, researchers find the liberal gene. That is beyond ridiculous, right? Why is it ridiculous? It's ridiculous for several important reasons. First and most importantly, there is no such thing, right? Why is there no such thing? Why can there never be any such thing? Because genes aren't that simple. There are multiple genes, there are multiple pathways, these things are multifactorial, they work in complicated interaction with environmental factors, so you're never going to find one single thing that's going to help you understand the liberal gene or the conservative gene. These things are very complex, and it's not just physiology, it's not just genetics, but it's also not just environment. They work together. What does that mean? It means that DNA isn't your destiny. Genes contribute to these political outcomes, but they're not the only thing that matters. The environmental factors also matter quite a bit.